Hey everybody, we are back for another edition of the Panagraph Prep Preview. I'm Joe Deacon again, and with me again is Randy Kindred.
Joe.
Randy, how are you today?
I'm doing great.
Good. We are unbelievably already at the midpoint of the season,
it's
week
flying
5.
by. Yeah, it's amazing.
Incredible. And the first game we're going to talk about here, we've got a big Illini Prairie showdown. The first time we can kind of really say that. It's Central Catholic, number 6, and Monticello at number 3, and going to be a big game in Monticello.
Yeah, it should be a really good one, I think. In talking to the Saints coach Mike Mays yesterday, it sounds like that Monticello's got good team speed, overall team speed. That's probably their main attribute, and so he said none of them are real blazers, but they all can run, and so. But he feels like the Saints have some athletes that can match up with that, so it'll just be a matter of who executes better and if they can continue to mix the run and pass like they've done so far this season. Yeah,
mixing the run and pass, and a couple of those athletes that you mentioned, Simon Davis having a good year, and of course James Morris, we've talked about a few times already.
Yeah, and Max Mays has had a good year at quarterback, and Monticello, their quarterback is completing almost 80% of his passes, and has thrown for over 900 yards and 12 touchdowns. So they're obviously they like to put the ball in the air, and they got 3 or 4 receivers that they can go to, and so it'll be a real good test for both teams. Monticello, their combined record of the teams they've beaten is like 3-13, and for the Saints it's like 5-11. So this will be a real test for both of them to see how they match up against a very quality team.
You mentioned the Sages offense a bit. Central on defense, they're going to have, I believe, Patrick Hoob is coming back this week, I believe.
Yeah, that'll be a big boost. He was an all-area performer last year, and he's a senior, his 3rd year as a starter, and a really good defensive player especially, and so I think that'll make a big difference. Had an high ankle sprain that apparently he's been able to practice this week. So.
It's good to hear. So that'll be a key game to watch on Friday. Another matchup of state-ranked conference opponents. Normal West, coming off their game against Normal Community, they're going to be hosting Danville. That's the number 8 and number 9 teams in their class there.
Yeah, I'm guessing that West has worked most of this week on just hang on to the ball. I mean, that was the big thing that really hurt them against Normal Community. They had so many turnovers, especially in the first half, that they were kind of taken out of that game. You got to credit Normal Community's defense for a lot of that, but still, if they can cut down on the turnovers, then they could get that offense rolling again, and it should be a good game.
They did, the Wildcats, you say, did get Genesis Force back for his second game this year. He had 87 yards, the 1 touchdown they did have. The Wildcats, like you say, they want to protect the ball. One thing to notice, too, like you mentioned with Monticello, I believe Danville, the opponents they faced are only 3-13 so far, even though they're 4-0. They've got, their 44-6 win over Urbana. Their key running back has been Jerry Reed. He's got 5 touchdowns and 564 yards rushing. And he's also got 2 interceptions, so that's more than the team's even thrown. So, so that's going to be the game to watch for the West as they host the Vikings. Moving on, Normal Community, who we touched on, they're coming off the win over Normal West, and now they're going to play a Richwoods team. So.
Yeah, and this is, I know it's not overlooked by Normal Community or Richwoods, but, you've got Danville and Normal West who are both state ranked going at it. Well, this is a matchup of 2 teams that are undefeated in the conference at this point, so it's a huge game in the Big 12, and the test, I guess, for Normal Community would be to bounce back after such a big rivalry game last week and get geared up again. I don't think that'll be a problem, but that's kind of what they're facing. Yeah,
and Richwoods, they came off a game last week. They were playing Manual, and they won 60-20. They've scored like 60 or 70 points in all of their wins.
Yeah.
They kind of had a rough first half, actually, against Manual. Kind of had to kick it into gear in the second half. Moving on, we'll take a look at Bloomington. They escaped Kankakee last week and pulled out a touchdown win at the end there. And now they get to face this high-powered offense from Peoria that, believe it or not, won a game 82-80 in overtime last week. That's a football score. Yeah. So Bloomington's probably in for a shootout this week.
Yeah, this game it's starting at 7:30 instead of 7. I'm not sure exactly why, but I think the over/under on when it'll end is like noon on Wednesday. So we're looking at it's going to go forever. I mean, Bloomington plays an up-tempo, no-huddle style as well, not to the extent that Peoria High does, but this it's bound to be just a track meet basically, and we'll just see if the Raiders can keep up.
Yeah, Peoria, they had 3 players rush for over 100 yards in that game against Peoria Notre Dame. They were actually down by like 34 points, I believe, and came back to force that game into double overtime. Kind of glad we didn't have to write all that stuff out
82
ourselves.
to 80, and you wonder if it was a 3-pointer at the buzzer or exactly what happened.
Something like that. Moving on, you've got University High. Now they got through Sacred Heart, Griffin, and Rochester. They figured the schedule would start to ease up. And the surprise team of the year is Decatur MacArthur. They're undefeated and 4-0, and that's who the Pioneers have next.
Yeah, I saw where you said MacArthur was 1-8 last year.
Yeah.
So, like you said, the Pioneers are probably thinking, well, at least once we get past Rochester, well, now these guys are obviously very good and beat Sacred Heart Griffin, and so there's no rest for the Pioneers. But hopefully they can. You know, they've hung in pretty well against the last 2 weeks against really quality competition, and hopefully they can kind of weather that storm one more week and then see where they're at and kind of regroup and make a good run the last 4 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of been crazy what MacArthur's been able to do. I mean, they knocked off Sacred Heart by 2 points. Last week they got by Springfield by 1 point. I mean, they've just been getting the wins. They've been a clutch team. So we'll see what U-High can do this week. And moving on to our area game of the week, we've got a couple of defenses that have played really well with Eureka and GCMS. Obviously, GCMS ranked in the 2A poll right now, and they're outscoring people by a ton. But both teams are holding teams under 10 points per game.
Yeah, I mean, Eureka 3-1. Their only loss was 14-7 or something like that to Tri-Valley, which is obviously a quality team. So this, I expect this to be a real good game. I would be surprised if it turns into a Big 12 style shootout. I think it's probably going to be more like last week's Fieldcrest Eureka game where Eureka won 21-13. I would expect a score more along those lines than I would a real shootout.
Obviously, GCMS boasts a strong running it back with Mitch McNutt. Had a huge year last year, and he's already halfway to another huge year this year.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. I remember doing a feature on him last year, and he's very meticulous about how many hours sleep he gets each night and exactly what he eats, and he's just a great example for a guy who takes great care of his body, and it pays off on the field. I mean, he's durable, and he's obviously very talented. And
Eureka, they've got coach's son, Jake Bachman, at quarterback. He's been a two-way threat, and he's also been good in the pass defensive game.
Yeah, and I think Eureka's kind of built on last year. They got in the playoffs for the first time in a long time, and several of these guys were important players on that team, and it seems like they've kind of taken that confidence that they gained, and they're having another good year.
Well, that's going to do it for another week of shows. We've got all the games coming in tomorrow night, and we'll have all the stories online at Panagraph.com, and be sure to pick up the Saturday section to read all the recaps. Thanks a lot.